The 1970s brought bold designs and big promises, but not every car hit the mark. Some models were so poorly made and underwhelming that they became infamous for all the wrong reasons. In today's video, we're diving into the Mark III killer crappy cars of the 1970s. Cars you won't believe actually hit the road. Get ready for some shocking automotive fails. The Reliant Scimitar GTE, 1968 to 1986, was a bold and innovative vehicle for its time, blending the practicality of a station wagon with the sporty appeal of a coupe. With its shooting brake design, it stood out in the crowded market of sports cars and family vehicles, offering something unique. A car that could carry 4 passengers, their luggage, and still look stylish while doing it. The Scimitar GTE was powered by a range of Ford engines, most notably the 3.0-liter S6-56, which provided decent performance and a pleasant engine note. The lightweight fiberglass body further enhanced its appeal by making it resistant to rust, a common issue for British cars of the era. On paper, the Scimitar GTE seemed to offer the best of both worlds. It had the performance to appeal to enthusiasts, the practicality to attract families, and the prestige to satisfy professionals looking for a distinctive car. It was even favored by royalty. Princess Anne famously drove a Scimitar, giving it a boost in visibility and desirability. However, the reality of owning a Reliant Scimitar GTE was far less glamorous. Despite its innovative design and promising concept, the Scimitar was plagued by reliability issues that undermined its appeal. Chief among these were persistent electrical failures. A hallmark of British cars from this era, the Scimitar's Lucas-sourced electrical system, nicknamed the Prince of Darkness by frustrated owners, was notorious for its unpredictability. Faulty wiring, failing alternators, and malfunctioning gauges were common, leading to frequent visits to the mechanic and no shortage of frustration for owners. The warrant build quality of the Scimitar GTE was another weak point. While the fiberglass body resisted rust, it was prone to cracking and warping over time. Panel gaps were often uneven, and the overall finish lacked the refinement of competitors like the Ford Capri or Triumph Stag. The interior, though well appointed for its time, suffered from inconsistent assembly and the use of low-grade materials. Upholstery wore out quickly, and the dashboard layout, while stylish, was not particularly durable or ergonomic. The car's rear reliability issues extended to its mechanical components as well. While the Ford S6 engine was generally robust, it was often let down by the components surrounding it. Cooling system failures were common, leading to overheating, a major concern for owners, particularly in hotter climates. The rear suspension, though innovative in design, was prone to premature wear, resulting in poor handling and expensive repairs. The fiberglass construction, though innovative, introduced its own set of challenges. While it was lighter and rust-resistant, it required specialized repair techniques that not all body shops were equipped to handle. This made even minor repairs costly and time-consuming. Furthermore, the fiberglass body did little to insulate the cabin from road noise, making long journeys less comfortable than they might have been in a more traditionally constructed car. Owner's perspective. As someone who once owned a Reliant Scimitar GTE, I can say it was a car full of promise but ultimately more trouble than it was worth. What initially drew me to the car was its unique design. There was nothing else quite like it on the road. The shooting brake styling was sleek and practical, and the S656 engine sounded fantastic when you opened it up on a country road. For the first few weeks, I felt like I had found a hidden gem, something that combines style, performance, and practicality in one package. Unfortunately, the honeymoon period didn't last long. The electrical problems started almost immediately. First, the headlights began flickering unpredictably, which was a safety concern, especially on evening drives. Then the dashboard gauges stopped working, leaving me guessing at my speed and fuel levels. I lost count of the number of times I had to replace fuses or rewire parts of the car just to keep it functioning. It felt like every time I fixed one electrical problem, 2 more would pop up. The power cooling system was another major issue. On several occasions, the engine overheated, even during relatively short drives. This was especially frustrating because it made the car unreliable for longer trips, which was one of the main reasons I had bought it in the first place. I spent a small fortune replacing parts of the cooling system, only to have the problem resurface a few months later. Then there was the handling. While the car handled well under ideal conditions, the suspension wasn't as durable as I had hoped. After only a couple of years, I started hearing clunks and rattles from the rear, and the car didn't feel as composed in corners as it once had. Repairs were expensive and not always easy to source, which added to the mounting frustration of owning the car. The Opel GT 1968 to 1973 stands out as one of the most striking sports cars of its time, often earning the nickname Baby Corvette for its resemblance to the American icon. With its sleek, curvaceous design, pop-up headlights, and aerodynamic profile, it was a car that immediately captured attention. It wasn't just the looks that made the Opel GT intriguing, it also represented a bold attempt by Opel, under General Motors ownership, to create an affordable sports car that offered style, performance, and a dash of European sophistication. Introduced in 1968, the Opel GT was based on the humble Opel Kadett platform, reimagined as a sleek two-seater coupe. Its design began as a concept vehicle, the Opel Experimental GT, which was showcased in 1965 to widespread acclaim. The production version stayed true to the original concept, with its long hood, short rear deck, and unmistakable pop-up headlights operated by a manual lever in the cabin. The lightweight fiberglass front end added to its futuristic appeal, while the rest of the body was made from steel, giving it a solid but ultimately vulnerable construction. Two engine options were available, a 1.1-liter inline-4, producing 67 horsepower, and a 1.9-liter inline-4 with 102 horsepower. Paired with either a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic transmission, the 1.9-liter engine could accelerate the GT from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 7 seconds, 11 seconds. While these numbers weren't groundbreaking, they positioned the Opel GT as a relatively affordable and sporty car for young drivers who valued style over outright speed. However, for all its visual appeal and engineering ambition, the Opel GT struggled to live up to its promise. While it was undeniably beautiful, its performance and practicality often fell short of expectations, leaving many owners with mixed feelings. One of the car's major drawbacks was its underwhelming engine performance. Especially in the base 1.1-liter model, the smaller engine lacked the power needed to deliver an engaging driving experience, and even the more popular 1.9-liter unit, while better, failed to offer the thrilling acceleration and top-end speed expected of a true sports car. Compared to competitors like the Datsun 240Z or the MGB, the Opel GT felt underpowered and less dynamic, leaving enthusiasts wanting more. Inside, the Opel GT presented a host of additional challenges. The cabin was cramped, with limited legroom and headroom that made it uncomfortable for taller drivers. The low seating position, combined with the sharply sloping roofline, added to the sense of confinement. Rear visibility was another weak point. The narrow rear window and thick C-pillars made reversing and parking particularly difficult. While the dashboard layout was stylish, it often lacked the ergonomic refinement necessary for a comfortable driving experience. Reliability issues plagued the Opel GT from the outset. Electrical problems were common, with owners frequently dealing with malfunctioning lights, faulty gauges, and wiring that tended to degrade over time. The pop-up headlights, while a unique and defining feature, were prone to mechanical failure, leaving them stuck in either the open or closed position. Mechanical durability was also a concern. The car's engines, particularly the 1.9-liter, were prone to overheating due to inadequate cooling systems. Clutch and transmission wear were frequent complaints, with many owners finding themselves replacing key components far earlier than expected. Rust was another Achilles heel for the Opel GT. While the fiberglass front resisted corrosion, the steel body panels were highly susceptible to rust, especially in damp or salty environments. Key areas like the wheel arches, sills, and floorboards often required extensive repairs, making it challenging to keep the car in good condition over the years. Practicality was another area where the Opel GT fell short. Despite its coupe design, the car lacked a proper trunk lid. This meant that the only way to access the small storage area behind the seats was through the interior, severely limiting the car's usefulness for anything beyond short trips. This lack of practicality, combined with its reliability issues, made the GT less appealing as a daily driver, relegating it to the status of a weekend car for most owners. For all its flaws, the Opel GT still had its redeeming qualities. Its balanced chassis and 50-50 weight distribution gave it impressive handling characteristics for its time, making it a joy to drive on twisty roads. The steering was precise and the car's lightweight added to its nimble feel. It was the kind of car that could make even a mundane trip feel like an adventure, provided you could tolerate its quirks. Owning an Opel GT was a labor of love. For many, the car's stunning design was enough to justify the headaches that came with it. Former owners often reminisce about the joy of driving a car that looks so unique. The Rufford RS 2000, 1973 to 1980, was one of the standout models in the second-generation Ford Escort lineup, blending rally-inspired performance with street practicality. Designed as a sporty version of the popular Escort, the RS 2000 appealed to enthusiasts with its distinctive styling, powerful engine, and promise of an engaging driving experience. However, while it earned a loyal following among driving purists, the car wasn't without its flaws, and many owners found its compromises difficult to overlook. The RS 2000 was positioned as the flagship of the Escort's road-going RS Rally Sport Series, sitting above the RS 1600 in terms of accessibility and everyday usability. The car was powered by a 2.0-liter inline-four Pinto engine, producing 110 horsepower, a significant boost over the base Escort models. This engine was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission, delivering power to the rear wheels and allowing the car to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 8.5 seconds. It was quick for its time, especially in the compact car segment, and its top speed of over 110 miles per hour further cemented its sporty credentials. One of the RS 2000's defining features was its aggressive styling. The car sported a distinctive polyurethane U-droop snoot nose, a departure from the standard Escort's boxier design. This gave the RS 2000 a sleek and aerodynamic look, enhanced by sporty alloy wheels, wide tires, and optional rally-style stripes. Inside, the RS 2000 offered a driver-focused cabin with supportive bucket seats, a sporty 3-spoke steering wheel, and auxiliary gauges that hinted at its motorsport pedigree. While it looked and performed like a rally car for the road, the RS 2000 was not without its issues, many of which diminished its appeal for everyday use. One of the most significant complaints about the RS 2000 was its ride quality. The car's stiff suspension, designed for spirited driving and rally-like handling, translated to a harsh and unforgiving ride on regular roads. Every bump and pothole was felt in the cabin, making the RS 2000 uncomfortable for commuting or longer journeys. While this suspension setup provided sharp handling and excellent cornering stability, it came at the expense of comfort, which alienated buyers looking for a more versatile vehicle. Rust was another major issue that plagued the RS 2000 and the Escort lineup as a whole. Ford's reliance on inexpensive steel and less-than-ideal rust-proofing methods meant that the RS 2000 was particularly prone to corrosion, especially in damp climates. Key areas such as the wheel arches, sills, floor pans, and suspension mounts were vulnerable, and once rust set in, it often spread rapidly, leading to structural integrity issues. Many RS 2000s were scrapped long before their engines or drivetrains wore out, simply because repairing the rust damage was too costly or impractical. Reliability, while generally decent for the RS 2000's engine, was not flawless. The Pinto engine was known for its durability, but it required regular maintenance to prevent issues such as camshaft wear and overheating. Owners who neglected oil changes or skimped on servicing often found themselves dealing with expensive engine repairs. Additionally, electrical problems were not uncommon, with faulty wiring and failing alternators being regular complaints among RS 2000 owners. Practicality was another weak point. The RS 2000's small size and sporty design made it less accommodating for families or those needing a versatile car. The interior, while functional, was cramped, especially in the rear seats. Storage space was limited, and the car's low ride height made it less suitable for rough or uneven terrain. For a vehicle that shared its platform with a practical economy car, these limitations frustrated buyers who expected a better balance between performance and everyday usability. For enthusiasts, however, the RS 2000 was a dream. Its lively handling, responsive throttle, and rally-bred DNA made it a joy to drive on twisty roads or open highways. The lightweight chassis and rear-wheel drive layout allowed skilled drivers to exploit its potential, particularly in wet or slippery conditions, where it felt balanced and controllable. This made the RS 2000 a favorite for amateur rally drivers and track day enthusiasts, cementing its status as a cult classic. For owners, the RS 2000 experience was a mixed bag. Many appreciated its performance and unique styling, but struggled with its shortcomings. One owner recalled the thrill of driving the car on winding country roads, describing it as a go-kart for grown-ups. However, the same owner lamented the constant battle against rust and the uncomfortable ride, saying, "It's a car you love to drive but hate to own." In hindsight, the Ford RS 2000 represents an era when performance cars were raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically focused on driving pleasure. While it had its share of flaws, most notably its rust-prone body, the Matra BMW 2002 Turbo 1973 to 1974 is one of the most iconic cars in BMW's storied history, representing the automaker's first venture into turbocharging and marking the genesis of BMW's high-performance road cars. Built on the bones of the immensely popular 2002, this turbocharged variant was introduced as a homologation special, designed to showcase cutting-edge technology and inject even more excitement into BMW's compact sedan lineup. However, while its raw performance and aggressive styling made it an instant legend, the 2002 Turbo also carried significant flaws that made it challenging and, at times, frustrating to own. The 2002 Turbo debuted at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1973, boasting a 2.0-liter, four-cylinder engine equipped with a KKK turbocharger. This setup produced an impressive 170 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque, astounding numbers for a compact car of its era. Capable of a top speed of 130 miles per hour and a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of around 7 seconds, the 2002 Turbo was one of the fastest production cars of its time, and the first European car to feature a factory-installed turbocharger. The car's performance credentials were matched by its bold styling. Flared wheel arches, aggressive front and rear spoilers, and optional turbo decals on the front air dam made it look like a race car for the road. Inside, it featured sporty bucket seats, a 3-spoke steering wheel, and a driver-focused gauge cluster, all contributing to its purposeful demeanor. Yet for all its innovation and speed, the BMW 2002 Turbo had significant drawbacks that limited its practicality and appeal. One of the car's most infamous flaws was turbo lag. True. Turbocharging was still a relatively new technology in the early 1970s, and the 2002 Turbo exhibited an extreme version of the phenomenon. Below 4,000 RPM, the car felt sluggish and underpowered, almost like driving a much less potent version of the standard 2002. But once the turbocharger spooled up, the power delivery was sudden and brutal, sometimes unsettlingly so. This on-off nature of the power band made the car tricky to handle, especially in tight corners or on slippery roads, where the sudden surge of power could easily overwhelm the rear tires and lead to oversteer. Fuel consumption was another major issue. The combination of turbocharging and a high-performance engine meant the 2002 Turbo drank fuel at an alarming rate, particularly under spirited driving conditions. At a time when the 1973 oil crisis was wreaking havoc on fuel prices and availability, the car's thirstiness made it an impractical choice for many buyers, further limiting its market appeal. Reliability also left much to be desired. The turbocharger, while innovative, placed additional strain on the engine, often leading to overheating and premature wear of components. The high compression ratios required to generate power made the engine more susceptible to knocking and required precise tuning, which could be difficult to maintain. Owners frequently reported issues with the turbocharger itself, along with problems in the cooling and fuel delivery systems. These mechanical challenges added to the cost and complexity of ownership, deterring all but the most dedicated enthusiasts. Rust was another Achilles heel of the 2002 Turbo. Like many cars of its era, BMWs were not well protected against corrosion, and the Turbo's lightweight bodywork was particularly vulnerable. Wheel arches, sills, and floor pans were common rust hotspots, and many examples succumbed to the elements long before their engines gave out. Practicality was yet another compromise. While based on the relatively sensible 2002 sedan, the Turbo's stiff suspension and aggressive gearing made it far less suited to everyday use. The ride was harsh on anything but the smoothest roads, and the lack of refinement compared to more conventional 2002 models made long trips tiring. Additionally, the flared bodywork and conspicuous graphics drew unwanted attention, both from onlookers and law enforcement, adding a layer of stress to ownership. Despite these shortcomings, the 2002 Turbo still had undeniable charm. It was a driver's car in the purest sense, offering thrilling performance and razor-sharp handling for those willing to master its quirks. For enthusiasts, the car's raw, unfiltered nature was part of its appeal, as was its rarity. Only 1,672 examples were built, making it one of the most collectible BMWs today. Former owners often recall the 2002 Turbo as a car that commanded respect. One owner reminisced, "It was a beast to drive, unforgiving, loud, and temperamental. But when you got it right, there was nothing like it. The sound of the turbo spooling up and the rush of power were addictive. You just had to be prepared to deal with its tantrums." In hindsight, the BMW 2002 Turbo was a car ahead of its time, pioneering turbocharging in a way that would influence future high-performance vehicles. The Dodge Challenger Rally 340 Bersu, 1970 to 1974, was introduced as a part of the Challenger lineup. Dodge's entry into the muscle car wars of the late 1960s and early 1970s. Positioned as a sporty and more affordable alternative to the high-performance RT models, the Rally 340 aimed to blend striking muscle car aesthetics with a lighter, more manageable powertrain. While it held some appeal for buyers seeking a stylish yet practical pony car, the Rally 340 ultimately fell short in delivering the true muscle car experience, earning a reputation as more show than go. At the heart of the Rally 340 was its 340 cubic inch 5.6-liter small block V8 engine, producing 275 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque in its early iterations. This engine was paired with either a 3-speed automatic or a 4-speed manual transmission, delivering respectable, if not exhilarating, performance. Compared to its big block siblings in the Challenger lineup, the Rally 340 was lighter and more agile, making it easier to handle on winding roads. Its smaller engine also made it more affordable to purchase and maintain, appealing to younger drivers or those who didn't need the earth-shaking power of a 426 Hemi or 440 Magnum. Styling was a major selling point for the Rally 340. It featured the bold, aggressive lines of the Challenger, complete with a long hood, short deck, and a menacing grille. The Rally package added unique touches like sporty air badging, dual hood scoops, racing stripes, and optional rally gauges, giving it the appearance of a more powerful model. It looked the part of a true muscle car, but beneath the surface, it often left enthusiasts wanting more. One of the biggest criticisms of the Rally 340 was its lack of outright performance compared to its competitors. By the early 1970s, muscle cars were already feeling the squeeze of emissions regulations, insurance premiums, and the looming oil crisis. As a result, the 340 engine's output began to decline, particularly after 1972, when power ratings transitioned from gross to net measurements and compression ratios were lowered to comply with stricter emission standards. By 1973, the Rally 340's engine output was officially rated at 240 net horsepower, a significant drop that placed it behind many rival cars in terms of performance. This decline in power was particularly disappointing because the Challenger's heavier weight, due to its larger dimensions compared to rivals like the Ford Mustang or Chevrolet Camaro, meant the 340 struggled to deliver the kind of acceleration and top-end speed expected of a muscle car. While it could still turn heads at a stoplight, it often found itself outpaced by competitors in straight-line performance, leaving drivers feeling underwhelmed. Another common complaint was the shift in focus from performance to appearance. The Rally 340 was marketed as a sporty package, but much of its appeal was purely cosmetic. Features like the hood scoops and stripes added visual flair, but were non-functional, further emphasizing that the car prioritized style over substance. For muscle car purists, this lack of mechanical upgrades to match its aggressive looks felt like a missed opportunity. Reliability and build quality were also areas where the Rally 340 struggled. Owners often reported issues with the car's electrical systems, suspension components, and transmissions. Rust was a persistent problem, especially in the undercarriage and wheel wells, exacerbated by Chrysler's inconsistent quality control during this era. Keeping a Rally 340 in good condition required significant effort and expense, which detracted from its appeal as an affordable performance car. Despite these shortcomings, the Rally 340 did have its virtues. Its smaller engine made it more nimble and balanced than the big block Challengers, allowing for sharper handling and a more enjoyable driving experience on twisty roads. It was also more practical for daily use, with better fuel economy and lower insurance premiums compared to its high horsepower siblings. For drivers who valued style and a modicum of performance without breaking the bank, the Rally 340 was a reasonable choice. For many owners, however, the Rally 340 was a car that didn't quite live up to its promise. One owner recalled, "It looked incredible sitting in the driveway, like it was ready to tear up the streets. But the reality was different. The power wasn't there, and it always felt like it was missing the heart of a true muscle car. It was fun, but not thrilling." In hindsight, the Dodge Challenger Rally 340 occupies a unique place in muscle car history. It represents a transitional moment when the muscle car formula began to shift in response to external pressures, prioritizing appearance and affordability over unbridled performance. While it may not have been the beast its styling suggested, the Rally 340 remains a nostalgic reminder of an era when bold designs, the Fiat X1. 1972 to 1989 was a small mid-engine sports car designed to offer an affordable, agile driving experience wrapped in an attractive, sharp design. Produced for over 17 years, the X1 stood out for its unique styling and the thrill of driving a rear-wheel drive, mid-engine layout at a relatively accessible price. However, despite its charm and handling capabilities, the X1 was plagued by significant drawbacks that made ownership a challenge, leaving many enthusiasts disappointed with its performance and reliability. The X1 was developed by Fiat in collaboration with the renowned Italian design studio Bertone. Its wedge-shaped angular design was ahead of its time, giving it a sleek, futuristic appearance. The car was compact and lightweight, with a two-seat configuration and a small engine compartment that housed a 1.3-liter or 1.5-liter inline-4 engine, depending on the model year and market. The mid-engine setup, a rare feature for cars in this price range, gave the X1 excellent handling characteristics, particularly in terms of cornering and balance. The car was known for its agility, with nimble steering and a responsive feel on twisty roads, making it a fun car to drive, at least when it was running. However, the X1's most significant flaw was its lack of power. The engine, which produced between 65 and 85 horsepower depending on the version, was underwhelming for a sports car. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car could barely reach highway speeds without straining. It was designed for low-budget buyers who wanted sporty handling, but the lack of power meant it could never compete with other affordable sports cars of its time, such as the MG Midget or the Datsun 240Z in terms of performance. The X1 was fun in the corners, but lacked the grunt needed to deliver a truly thrilling driving experience. Another major issue was rust. Like many Italian cars of the era, the X19 was highly susceptible to corrosion. The car's lightweight construction, while aiding in handling, also made it prone to rust, particularly in the unprotected areas of the bodywork. The rear wheel wells, sills, and floor pans were particularly vulnerable to rust, and given the car's mid-engine design, water and dirt easily accumulated in these areas. Rust could often spread quickly, leading to serious structural issues, especially in cars that had seen many years of use. For owners in colder climates, the X19 could become a rust bucket, requiring costly repairs to maintain. Electrical issues were another persistent problem for the Fiat X19. Many owners reported problems with the car's electrical systems, ranging from faulty wiring to failing alternators and unreliable ignition systems. The car's electrical components were not built to withstand the test of time, and while these issues could often be patched up with careful attention, they added to the overall cost and inconvenience of ownership. In many cases, owners found themselves constantly troubleshooting electrical problems that kept the car from being as reliable as it should have been. While the X19 was designed to be a fun, affordable sports car, it was not particularly practical. The mid-engine layout, while beneficial for handling, resulted in a cramped cabin and limited storage space. The car was small, and while this contributed to its agility, it meant that the X19 was best suited for solo drives or short trips. Long-distance road trips were uncomfortable, and the interior, while stylish, was often regarded as cramped and somewhat cheap-feeling, with low-quality plastics and sparse features. The X19's relatively harsh ride, a side effect of its sporty suspension, also made it less ideal for daily commuting or extended drives. Despite these issues, the Fiat X19 had a strong following, and for many enthusiasts, it remained an enjoyable, if imperfect, car. Its quirky design, sharp handling, and the appeal of owning a mid-engine sports car at an affordable price made it a standout in the affordable sports car market. However, the combination of underwhelming performance, reliability issues, and susceptibility to rust meant that many owners found the X19 to be a car that required constant care and attention to keep running. It was a car that, while fun to drive when it was at its best, was often a headache to own. One owner of the X19 shared their experience. When it ran well, the X19 was a joy. It felt like a little race car, especially through the tight corners. But it was always something, whether it was a bad connection in the electrical system or rust creeping through the panels. It was a constant battle, and I ended up spending more time fixing it than actually driving it. In hindsight, the Fiat X19 represents an interesting chapter in the history of affordable sports cars. It was ahead of its time in terms of its design. The Mazda RX-3 Coupe, 1971 to 1978, was one of the most distinctive and revolutionary cars of its time, thanks to its rotary engine, a technology that set it apart from almost every other car on the road. As Mazda's entry into the world of performance sports coupes, the RX-3 had an innovative, lightweight design and an engine unlike anything its competitors offered. However, despite its unique appeal and performance potential, the RX-3 was ultimately plagued by several serious issues that made ownership challenging and its long-term reliability questionable. At the heart of the RX-3 was Mazda's rotary engine. The Wankel design, which was compact, smooth, and capable of high-revving performance. The car's 12A and later 13B rotary engines produced around 100 horsepower, which, while modest by today's standards, gave the RX-3 quick acceleration and a peppy driving experience, especially considering the car's lightweight build. With its rear-wheel drive layout, the RX-3 was an agile and responsive car, known for its sharp handling and fun driving dynamics. The rotary engine also provided a distinctive sound and character that enthusiasts found exhilarating. The RX-3's wow-us design was another highlight. It had a classic, compact coupe silhouette with muscular yet clean lines, wide fenders, and a sleek profile. Inside, it offered a simple but effective interior layout that was focused on driving pleasure, with a minimalistic dashboard and supportive seats. The car was designed to be lightweight and affordable, which helped it gain a strong following among younger drivers and performance enthusiasts. However, the rotary engine, while innovative and capable of providing exciting performance, came with several major drawbacks. One of the most significant issues was its poor fuel economy. The rotary engine, due to its design, was notoriously inefficient compared to conventional piston engines. Despite its small displacement, the RX-3's fuel consumption was high, and owners often found themselves at the gas station far more often than they'd like. The poor fuel economy made the car impractical for everyday use, especially as gasoline prices rose throughout the 1970s. The engine's thirst for fuel, combined with the car's relatively small fuel tank, made long trips a challenge. The rotary engine's reliability was another critical issue that plagued the RX-3. While the engine was smooth and revved freely, it required meticulous maintenance to keep running properly. The rotary design has a tendency to wear out seals and apex seals, which are essential for the engine's compression, leading to a loss of compression and a decline in performance. These components required frequent replacement, which could be costly and time-consuming. Many owners experienced engine failures, and without proper maintenance, the engine could quickly become unreliable. Additionally, the rotary engine was sensitive to oil quality and needed regular attention to prevent it from seizing or smoking excessively. Along with engine issues, overall build quality and reliability were areas where the RX-3 fell short. The car was prone to rust, especially in the fenders and underbody, which was a common issue for many cars of its era, particularly Japanese models. Over time, the car's handling and suspension components could suffer from wear, leading to increased maintenance costs and decreased performance. Additionally, the rotary engine's unique nature meant that finding qualified mechanics and spare parts was not always easy, which further contributed to the RX-3's reputation for requiring frequent and sometimes expensive repairs. The lack of torque was also a common criticism of the RX-3. While the rotary engine was capable of high revving performance, it didn't offer the low-end torque that many traditional piston-powered engines provided. As a result, the RX-3's acceleration felt less punchy at low speeds, and it required more revs to get the performance that drivers wanted. This could be frustrating for drivers accustomed to the more immediate response of conventional engines, especially in everyday driving conditions. For all its performance potential, the Mazda RX-3 was not the most practical car to own. Its high maintenance demands, poor fuel economy, and vulnerability to mechanical issues made it a car that required constant attention and care. While it was undoubtedly a fun car to drive, the novelty of the rotary engine couldn't make up for the frustrations that came with it. Many owners found themselves spending more time in the garage than on the road, making it a car that was best suited to those with deep pockets or an unshakable love for the rotary engine. One former owner of the RX-3 summed up the experience with this sentiment: "It was an amazing car to drive when it was running well. The rotary engine gave it this unique character and sound that you just couldn't get anywhere else." The Morgan Plus 8, 1968 to 2004, is an iconic British roadster known for its distinctive, retro styling and classic wood frame construction. Over its long production run, it garnered a loyal following among enthusiasts who appreciated its old-world charm, traditional craftsmanship, and the throaty roar of its Rover V8 engine. Despite its appeal as a throwback to a simpler era of motoring, the Plus 8 had its share of significant drawbacks that made it less practical for many owners and less competitive in the modern sports car market. One of the most defining features of the Morgan Plus 8 was its styling. The car stuck to the tried-and-true formula of a two-seater roadster with a long bonnet, short rear end, and fender-mounted headlights, evoking the timeless designs of classic British roadsters. The body was traditionally made of aluminum, mounted on a wooden frame, which, while giving the car a unique look and lightweight, also made it susceptible to rust and structural issues over time. The craftsmanship and attention to detail were undeniably high, but the design itself remained largely unchanged for decades, making the Plus 8 feel outdated even in the 1990s and early 2000s. Under the hood, the Montreal Rover V8 engine Derby powered the Plus 8, giving it respectable performance for its time. With outputs ranging from 135 to 190 horsepower depending on the model and year, the Plus 8 was capable of brisk acceleration and a satisfying driving experience. However, the engine, while powerful, was also an aging design that lacked the refinement and efficiency of more modern sports car engines. For a car that was meant to compete in the world of high-performance motoring, the Rover 5.8 was seen as a step back, especially considering the increasing sophistication of competitors from brands like Porsche, Jaguar, and Ferrari. The driving experience. In the Plus 8 was part of its appeal, with its lightweight construction and rear-wheel drive layout offering nimble handling and a direct connection to the road. However, the car's suspension and chassis were designed with a focus on simplicity and classic roadster feel rather than modern performance. This meant that the Plus 8, while enjoyable on winding country roads, lacked the precision and stability offered by more advanced suspension systems in contemporary sports cars. In terms of handling, the Plus 8 could be described as rough around the edges, with a tendency to be twitchy and unpredictable at times. One of the biggest criticisms of the Morgan Plus 8 was its lack of modern amenities. The car's interior was simple to the point of being Spartan. While some buyers appreciated the minimalist approach, others found the lack of creature comforts, such as power steering, air conditioning, and modern infotainment systems, frustrating. For a car that was still being produced well into the 2000s, the Plus 8 felt like a step back into a bygone era, making it hard to justify its price for anyone seeking the convenience and features of a more modern sports car. The absence of these amenities also contributed to a driving experience that was less comfortable, particularly on long trips. Another issue was the build quality and maintenance. The Morgan Plus 8, with its wooden frame and aluminum body panels, required meticulous care to maintain its structural integrity and prevent rust. The wooden frame, while giving the car a distinctive vintage feel, was particularly vulnerable to moisture and aging. While Morgan cars were known for their handcrafted quality, this also meant that they were more prone to issues such as misaligned panels and wood rot, particularly in older models. The car demanded a higher level of attention and upkeep than many other sports cars, and the lack of widespread service networks meant that finding qualified mechanics and parts could be a challenge for owners. In terms of run performance, the Plus 8 did offer reasonable acceleration, especially considering its weight and engine power. However, the car's top speed and handling were eclipsed by modern sports cars that offered far more refinement in technology. The Morgan felt slow and outdated when compared to competitors, especially in terms of braking performance, handling precision, and acceleration. As a result, the Plus 8 wasn't a car for those looking for cutting-edge performance. Instead, it was more for those who enjoyed the sense of nostalgia and the traditional driving experience that Morgan was famous for. One ownership of the Plus 8 reflected on the car's character. It was a beautiful car to look at and drive on a nice day, but it was always a hassle. No power steering, no air conditioning, and the wooden frame meant I was always worried about rust. It was a joy to drive when it was working, but it often felt like a relic from the past that wasn't quite ready for modern roads. It was an experience, but not a particularly convenient one. The CORVETTE Triumph GT6 Mark III, 1970 to 1973, is often remembered as an ambitious attempt by Triumph to take the charming Spitfire Roadster and transform it into a more refined and powerful coupe. With its sleek body, a six-cylinder engine, and sporting aspirations, the GT6 Mark III had the potential to be a capable and thrilling car. However, despite its promise, the GT6 was plagued with a variety of issues that ultimately made it a difficult car to own and enjoy for many drivers. The most significant selling point of the Bagheera GT6 Mark III was its six-cylinder engine, which gave it a level of performance that the four-cylinder Spitfire couldn't match. Producing around 104 horsepower, the 2.0-liter engine provided decent acceleration and a higher top speed compared to its predecessor. The GT6 was a relatively fast car for its size, with the six-cylinder engine giving it a more refined and powerful driving experience. The GT6 also featured a coupe body, which offered better protection from the elements compared to the Spitfire's open top, and gave it a more aggressive and stylish profile. However, despite these advantages, the Mazda GT6 Mark III Crown had a number of serious issues that made it less appealing to drive in everyday conditions. One of the most notorious problems was its overheating issues. The GT6's engine, while powerful, had a tendency to run hot, especially during prolonged use or in warmer weather. This was partly due to the car's cooling system, which was underpowered for the demands of the six-cylinder engine. Owners often found themselves needing to top up the radiator or deal with cooling system failures, leading to a frustrating ownership experience. Overheating was a persistent issue, and the lack of modern cooling technologies made it all the more difficult to resolve. Another major issue was the rear suspension design, which used a solid axle with a leaf spring setup. While this design was simple and inexpensive, it compromised the handling of the car. The GT6 was prone to oversteering, making it difficult to control at the limit. The rear suspension's lack of sophistication meant that the car didn't handle as well as many of its contemporaries, especially when compared to cars with more advanced suspension systems. This made the GT6 a less enjoyable car to drive on twisty roads or at high speeds, as its handling could be unpredictable and unstable, particularly when pushing it hard. Rust issues was another common problem with the GT6. Like many British cars of the era, the GT6 was prone to rust, particularly around the sills, wheel arches, and undercarriage. The car's bodywork was prone to corrosion due to poor quality materials, and many owners found themselves dealing with rust repairs fairly early in their ownership. Even with regular maintenance, rust was a constant threat, and many GT6s suffered from severe corrosion issues by the time they were a few years old. The combination of rust and overheating led to high repair costs and limited the car's longevity. Despite its relatively stylish design, the GT6 Mark III was also criticized for its whole build quality. Like many cars of its era, the GT6 suffered from inconsistent assembly and poor quality control. This meant that parts of the car could become loose or misaligned over time, affecting the overall driving experience and leading to costly repairs. The build quality didn't match the level of refinement found in more established sports cars, and this lack of attention to detail was evident in the fit and finish of various components. Many owners of the Mazda GT6 Mark III found themselves frustrated by the car's tendency to break down and the ongoing repair bills. One owner remarked, "The GT6 was fun when it worked, but it didn't work all that often. Between the overheating, rust, and the suspension problems, it always felt like a car on the edge of falling apart. I loved the idea of it, but I was always fixing something." This sentiment was common among owners, and while the car was enjoyable to drive in ideal conditions, those ideal conditions were few and far between. In conclusion, the Triumph GT6 Mark III had the potential to be a great sports coupe, but it was ultimately held back by a combination of mechanical flaws, design limitations, and poor build quality. While the six-cylinder engine offered strong performance, the car's overheating issues, poor handling, and susceptibility to rust made it a less than ideal choice for most drivers. The GT6 was a car that required a great deal of care and maintenance to keep it running, and its flaws often outweighed the fun it provided on the road. For many, the GT6 Mark III became a love-hate relationship, fondly remembered for its potential and its classic design, but equally frustrating because of the constant upkeep and the many issues that plagued its performance and reliability. The Chevrolet Cosworth Vega, 1975 to 1976, was an ambitious attempt by General Motors to produce a high-performance version of the relatively humble Chevrolet Vega. Equipped with a specially designed Cosworth-built engine, this limited production model was marketed as a sports car with a focus on performance and engineering, intended to compete with the likes of the Datsun 240Z and the more established performance cars of the era. Despite its potential and some notable features, the Cosworth Vega ultimately fell short in many areas, and its shortcomings made it a disappointment for many owners and automotive enthusiasts. One of the most significant aspects of the Matra Cosworth Vega was its rear engine, a 2.0-liter, four-cylinder unit designed by the renowned British engineering firm Cosworth. The engine was equipped with dual overhead camshafts, a feature that set it apart from the Vega's standard engine and promised higher performance. On paper, the engine produced around 110 horsepower, which was a respectable figure for the time. However, the reality was that the Cosworth Vega struggled to live up to its performance claims. The car's acceleration was lackluster, and it often felt slower than its rivals, especially given its high price tag and the expectations placed upon it. Despite the sophisticated engine design, the Cosworth Vega never felt as fast or as engaging to drive as its competitors, leading many to question its performance credentials. One of the primary reasons the wordy Cosworth Vega was considered a failure was due to its reliability issues. The engine, despite its advanced design, suffered from significant durability problems. Many owners reported frequent breakdowns, with engine components failing prematurely and requiring costly repairs. The car's fuel system, cooling system, and electrical components were also known to be unreliable, leading to frequent trips to the mechanic. The high level of maintenance required for the Cosworth Vega made it a poor choice for anyone looking for a dependable daily driver. What was supposed to be a performance car became a frustrating, unreliable machine that detracted from the driving experience. Another critical flaw of the Cosworth Vega was its high price. At around $5,500 in the mid-1970s, the Cosworth Vega was significantly more expensive than the standard Vega, and in many cases, it cost more than other performance-oriented cars that were available at the time. The high price tag was difficult to justify, especially considering that the Cosworth Vega didn't offer the performance or the reliability to match its cost. Buyers found themselves paying a premium for a car that didn't deliver the thrills they expected. Moreover, the Vega's quality issues meant that many buyers were essentially paying more for a car that would require frequent maintenance, further diminishing the car's value proposition. The interior model of the Cosworth Vega was also a point of contention for many. While it had some special touches, such as sportier seats and trim, it still retained much of the Vega's budget-oriented interior. The materials felt cheap and the cabin was cramped, lacking the comfort and refinement expected from a car that was marketed as a high-performance vehicle. The overall fit and finish were also below the standards of many other cars in its price range, further eroding the car's appeal. On the road, the Cosworth Vega was overshadowed by its competitors. Despite the specialized engine, it lacked the handling finesse and driving excitement that cars like the Datsun 240Z or the Porsche 914 offered. The Vega's chassis and suspension were underdeveloped, resulting in a car that didn't handle as sharply or as predictably as it should have for a performance vehicle. In comparison, cars in the same price range or even lower offered better performance, handling, and reliability, making the Cosworth Vega a tough sell for those looking for a sports car that could deliver both fun and practicality. 1. Owner Rusher of the Cosworth Vega noted, "I bought it thinking I was getting a serious performance car, but it just didn't live up to the hype. Sure, the engine was nice in theory, but it was always in the shop for one thing or another. It never had the speed or reliability I expected, and I ended up spending more on repairs than I did on the car itself. I really wanted to love it, but it just wasn't worth the headache." In conclusion, the Chevrolet Cosworth Vega failed to live up to its promises of performance and reliability, and its high price made it an unattractive option in the face of stiff competition. The Cosworth engine, while an innovative design, didn't translate into the kind of performance that enthusiasts were hoping for, and the car's long list of reliability issues made it a poor investment for most owners. The Vega's reputation was tarnished by its mechanical problems, its underwhelming driving experience. The Matra Bagheera, 1973 to 1980, was a fascinating product of French automotive ingenuity, blending innovative design with the unconventional flair Matra was known for. A collaboration between Matra and Simca, the Bagheera promised a unique blend of practicality and style. With its sleek wedge-shaped body, mid-engine layout, and the intriguing addition of 3 seats in a single row, It stood out as a sports car like no other. However, beneath its striking exterior lay a host of flaws that overshadowed its potential, earning it a reputation as a car that failed to deliver on its promise. The Bagheera's most striking feature was its circular three-seat layout, with all passengers sitting side by side in the front row. This arrangement was highly unusual for a sports car and gave the Bagheera a distinct identity. It was a clever way to maximize interior space, allowing it to combine the practicality of carrying an extra passenger with the compact dimensions of a mid-engine sports car. Matra's design team clearly had an eye for the futuristic, as the Bagheera's sharply angled body and pop-up headlights were right in step with the wedge-shaped aesthetics of the 1970s. The car looked fast even when standing still, and its design turned heads wherever it went. However, the Bagheera's performance failed to match its dynamic appearance. Powering the car was a modest Simca-derived inline-4 engine, initially displacing 1.3 liters and later upgraded to 1.5 liters. Even with the lightweight construction, the engine struggled to deliver the kind of thrills that the Bagheera's aggressive styling seemed to promise. With outputs ranging from 84 to 90 horsepower, acceleration was tepid, and top speeds hovered around 115 miles per hour, 185 kilometers per hour. This was adequate for the era, but far from exciting, especially compared to rivals like the Fiat X1 or the Lotus Europa, which offered superior performance and handling. The Bagheera's biggest flaw was its poor build quality, most notably its rust-prone bodywork. While the outer body panels were made from fiberglass, the underlying steel chassis was notoriously susceptible to corrosion. The French climate and often inadequate rust-proofing measures meant that many Bagheeras succumbed to rust within just a few years of leaving the factory. This structural vulnerability became a nightmare for owners, as significant rust repairs were often more expensive than the car was worth. Even well-maintained examples frequently exhibited rust in critical areas, making the Bagheera's long-term durability questionable. Adding to the woes, the Bagheera suffered from mechanical issues and unreliability. The Simca engine, while easy to maintain in theory, was often pushed to its limits in the Bagheera. Frequent overheating, oil leaks, and drivetrain problems were not uncommon, leading to frustration for many owners. The car's interior, while innovative in design, also suffered from poor material quality, with plastics and upholstery prone to cracking and deterioration over time. Electrical systems, another weak point, were riddled with gremlins, further complicating ownership. Despite these shortcomings, the Bagheera offered a surprisingly good ride and handling for a car of its class. Its mid-engine layout and well-balanced chassis gave it sharp cornering abilities, and its low center of gravity made it feel planted on the road. However, the enjoyment of driving was often overshadowed by the constant worry of mechanical failures or rust issues. What could have been a delightful and practical sports car was instead marred by its inability to meet the expectations of reliability and performance. One owner's testimony captures the bittersweet experience of Bagheera ownership. "I loved the way the Bagheera looked and the attention it got, but owning it was a full-time job. Every time I drove it, something seemed to go wrong. The engine would overheat, the electrics would fail, or I'd find another patch of rust eating through the chassis. I wanted to enjoy it, but I spent more time fixing it than driving it. It was a car that looked like a dream, but behaved like a nightmare." In hindsight, the Matra Bagheera remains a compelling example of 1970s French design daring, but its execution left much to be desired. It was a car that dared to be different, offering an unconventional layout and futuristic styling, but its mechanical shortcomings, rust problems, and lack of performance undermined its appeal. For enthusiasts of quirky and rare vehicles, the Bagheera still holds charm as a collector's item. However, for the average buyer of its era, it was a car that promised much but ultimately delivered far too little. The Alfa Romeo Montreal, 1970 to 1977, is a car that exemplifies the highs and lows of Italian automotive craftsmanship. Born as a concept car for the 1967 Montreal Expo, it was so well received that Alfa Romeo decided to bring it to production. With its dramatic styling by Marcello Gandini of Bertone fame and an exotic V8 engine derived from Alfa's racing heritage, the Montreal seemed destined to be a masterpiece. However, while it dazzled onlookers with its beauty, the Montreal's shortcomings in performance, reliability, and practicality tarnished its reputation, leaving it as a bittersweet chapter in Alfa Romeo's storied history. The Montreal's design is undoubtedly its most celebrated feature. Its sleek, futuristic lines, its unique covered headlamps with retractable slats, and muscular proportions give it an undeniable presence. The distinctive side vents, intended to suggest mid-engine credentials, despite the car being front-engine, and the concave rear window further emphasized its avant-garde aesthetic. The car looked like it was ready to roar onto the racetrack or cruise down the Riviera, instantly cementing its place among the most beautiful GT cars of its era. Under the hood, the Montreal featured a 2.6-liter V8 engine, derived from Alfa Romeo's racing cars. With mechanical fuel injection and a high-revving nature, the engine was a technological marvel on paper. It produced 200 horsepower, an impressive figure for the time, and delivered a sonorous exhaust note that delighted enthusiasts. Mated to a 5-speed ZF manual transmission, the Montreal promised a spirited driving experience. Unfortunately, this promise didn't always translate to reality. While the car could reach a top speed of 137 miles per hour, 220 kilometers per hour, its outperformance often felt underwhelming compared to its rivals. The Montreal's relatively heavy weight, due in part to its luxurious appointments and robust construction, dulled its acceleration and handling. The V8 engine, though sophisticated, wasn't as powerful as its peers from Ferrari or Lamborghini, leaving the Montreal feeling more like a grand tourer than the outright sports car its appearance suggested. Adding to the Montreal's woes were its mechanical fragility and complexity. The Spica mechanical fuel injection system, while advanced, was notoriously finicky and prone to issues, requiring precise tuning and frequent maintenance. The V8 engine itself was temperamental, with sensitive tolerances and a reputation for overheating if not properly maintained. Combined with Alfa's less-than-stellar build quality during the 1970s, the Montreal often found itself sidelined with mechanical problems. Rust, a common ailment for Italian cars of the era, was another persistent issue for the Montreal. Despite its status as a premium model, Alfa Romeo didn't adequately address corrosion prevention, leading to many Montreals suffering from severe rust in their body panels and undercarriage. For owners, keeping the car roadworthy often became a labor of love and a drain on their wallets. The driving experience, it also left something to be desired. While the Montreal offered excellent grip and balance for a front-engine car, its weight and less-than-ideal steering feel made it less agile than competitors. The brakes, though adequate, lacked the responsiveness that performance-oriented drivers expected. Additionally, the interior, though stylish and well-appointed, was cramped and visibility was compromised by the aggressive design. The cooling system struggled in hot climates, and the car's overall reliability often made long-distance trips a gamble. One how an owner's reflection highlights the duality of the Montreal. It was the most beautiful car I'd ever owned, and every time I looked at it, I felt like the luckiest person alive. But driving it was another story. The engine needed constant attention. It overheated on summer drives, and parts were nearly impossible to find. It wasn't fast enough to justify the trouble, and yet I could never bring myself to sell it. It was an Italian diva, stunning but high maintenance. The Alfa Romeo Montreal line remains a polarizing car in automotive history. It's celebrated for its groundbreaking design and its bold attempt to bring an exotic flavor to the GT segment. However, its refitted in underwhelming performance, reliability issues, and high running costs limited its appeal, even during its production run. With only about 3,900 units produced, the Montreal is now a rare collector's item, prized more for its aesthetic beauty than its driving dynamics. It's a car that exemplifies the phrase "style over substance," loved by those who value its artistry and tolerated by those willing to overlook its flaws. For all its imperfections, the Montreal is a testament to Alfa Romeo's willingness to take risks, sometimes succeeding spectacularly and sometimes faltering under the weight of ambition. The Tomaso Pantera GT1 1971 to 1992 was a bold Italian-American collaboration that promised exotic supercar styling and thunderous V8 performance at a more attainable price. Designed by Tom Ciarda at GIA, the Pantera combined the flair of Italian design with the brute force of an American Ford V8 engine, aiming to deliver the best of both worlds. On paper, it seemed like the perfect recipe, a sleek, mid-engine sports car with power and presence. However, despite its potential, the Pantera's execution was riddled with flaws that often overshadowed its impressive attributes. The Pantera's US design was its most celebrated feature. With sharp angular lines, a wedge-shaped profile, and aggressive proportions, it was the epitome of 1970s supercar aesthetics. It looked fast, exotic, and ready to take on rivals from Ferrari and Lamborghini. The mid-engine layout gave it a balanced stance, and the wide rear tires hinted at its performance potential. The Pantera had a presence that turned heads and demanded attention wherever it went. At the heart of the Pantera was its Ford-sourced 5.8-liter Cleveland V8, producing 330 horsepower in its early iterations. Unlike temperamental European engines, the V8 was torquey, reliable, and relatively easy to service, making it a standout feature of the car. It delivered exhilarating acceleration with a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of around 5.5 seconds and a top speed of 159 miles per hour, 256 kilometers per hour. The ZF 5-speed transaxle added to the Pantera's exotic appeal, and the car's power delivery was as dramatic as its design. However, the Pantera's performance was often compromised by its run overheating issues. The mid-mounted V8 generated a tremendous amount of heat, and the cooling system was inadequately designed to handle it. Many owners experienced engine overheating in traffic or during spirited drives, a problem exacerbated by the car's tight engine bay and insufficient airflow. Even after repeated updates, including improved radiators and fans in later models, the overheating issue remained a persistent thorn in the Pantera's side. The build quality of the Pantera was another major drawback. Produced by Tomaso in Modena, Italy, the car suffered from inconsistent craftsmanship. Misaligned panels, poor quality materials, and questionable assembly standards plagued early models. Especially the cars imported to the United States through Ford's Lincoln Mercury dealerships. Electrical gremlins, subpar interior fit and finish, and rattles from the bodywork were common complaints. These flaws were particularly frustrating for buyers who expected a car that matched the quality of its high-performance rivals. The car's interior, while stylish in appearance, was notoriously cramped and uncomfortable. The cabin was designed with little regard for ergonomics, making it difficult for taller drivers to fit comfortably. The pedal box was offset, forcing an awkward driving position, and the heat from the engine bay often seeped into the cabin, making long drives a sweaty ordeal. Additionally, the early Pantera's seats offered little support, and the quality of the materials left much to be desired. Despite its supercar aspirations, the Pantera's interior felt more like a kit car than a finely tuned Italian exotic. While the Pantera had impressive straight-line speed, its homage handling left much to be desired. The suspension, while competent, struggled to balance the car's weight and power, particularly in early models. Understeer and unpredictable behavior at the limit were not uncommon, and the heavy steering at low speeds made maneuvering a chore. Later models, such as the Pantera GT5 and GT5S, addressed some of these issues with wider tires and improved suspension setups, but the car never reached the handling finesse of its European competitors. One owner's testimony encapsulates the Pantera experience. It was a car that made you feel like a rock star when you pulled up anywhere. But the ownership experience was brutal. The overheating was constant, and I could never drive it far without worrying about something breaking. The interior was so cramped, I felt like I was wearing the car rather than driving it. Still, I kept it because nothing else had that same raw charisma. It was a love-hate relationship. Despite its flaws, the Pantera developed a cult following over its 2-decade production run. Later versions, particularly the GT5 and GT5S, were refined with wider bodywork, better aerodynamics, and improved cooling systems. By then, however, the Pantera had lost some of its affordability, and the competition had grown stronger. In conclusion, the Tomaso Pantera was a car that promised much but delivered a mixed bag. Its stunning design, thunderous V8 power, and exotic aura made it a dream car for many, but its overheating issues, poor build quality, and cramped interior